guess we could start. Hello, 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 everyone. It's Mxiety. I am on tonight with the lovely Crypt Crusader, also better known as Dominick Evans. You have probably seen him around Twitter, and if you haven't seen him around Twitter, you've seen him literally everywhere else. There are numerous interviews with you online. He is coming on loudly over the speakers, or as loudly as we could possibly get him. Yeah, we're super excited. As you all know, this show isn't the same without you, people who are watching live. Please be sure to add your questions, exclamation, the letter Q, and your question after that. We will try to incorporate as many questions as we go, but otherwise there's kind of a mini Q&A session at the end. Thank you so much for being here. Dominick, thank you so much. I know you weren't feeling your best, so thank you so much for coming on with us.
Thank you so much for having me. Hello, everyone. My name, as Mxiety said, I am Dominick Evans. That's my legal name currently. It's not the name I was born with. I was born with a very long, unpronounceable Polish last name, which is why I changed my name to Evans, although I have to say there are some regrets about not having my, this name that's culturally and historically, beholden to me and my family, but it is much easier being an Evans than being a Lonizak or Ławniczak in Polish, which is how you say it.
Oh my goodness. Well, as somebody with a long Greek last name, I know where you're coming from, and I chose to I don't go by my mother's Greek last name. I went by my dad's name, which was much shorter, so I get it.
Yeah. And obviously my name was not originally Dominick. I am trans, non-binary, queer. So Dominick was the name I chose for myself. So
that's I always find that to be really interesting. Is there a significance for you for choosing Dominick?
I liked the Fast and Furious.
Oh shit.
That's the absolute truth.
That's amazing.
People find it hilarious because, my girlfriend and I were watching a lot of the Fast and Furious around the time that I was coming out. So, which tells you how old I am and how long I've been out, because it was when the first movie came out. And I really liked the character of Dominic Toretto, his family loyalty. And also, despite everything, he really tried to do the right thing and he cared about other people. And I wanted to be someone that, people look to kind of, because I feel like I kind of am that way with my friends. I want to be caring and kind of like in that fatherly, providerly, parently role or whatever, I often end up in that way. I'm often now one of the older people in my friends groups. So, but even when I was younger, people always kind of looked to me that way, because I've always had to be the strong one. So, but I also like that there were all these other layers about this character and his relationship with my dad, or with his dad who died, and my dad had just died the year before the film came out. So that also resonated with me. And I wanted to be a little different, so I added the K to my name, and that's how I got my name.
That's amazing. And I love that whole idea. I mean, as long as it's significant to you and it's important, and it sounds like there's a lot of value behind it. And that's just so beautiful. And that's incredible when somebody can be who they were meant to be, and that process of self-discovery. I mean, a lot of us go through that, whether you're cisgender or not. But I think it's really, really incredible to see somebody become their true self, especially as somebody in the LGBTQIA community who that's an extra step. It's something that I take for granted that you had to go through and really push through. So that's amazing, and thank you for sharing that.
Oh, thank you. It's a journey I'm still on. When I first came out, I thought that I wanted to be a trans man, but the more, a lot of that was embedded, these ideas we have about binary genders and how
Yeah.
you either have to be masculine or feminine. And I've always been a type of person that's bounced between those extremes, when I was trying so hard to be a girl. Um, going to that place of extreme femininity. So when I came out as trans, and also back then we really didn't have this concept of non-binary. It was you're a trans woman or you're a trans man. And this was only, this was about 20 years ago. So this is still a very new concept of people know they're non-binary, they don't have the words to describe it. So I thought I had to prove I was this man and be hyper masculine, but I was never comfortable with that. So having the term non-binary was very freeing for me because I was shamed for being feminine, I was shamed for being masculine. Where do I really fit into that picture? And I'm still kind of exploring that. And also these things we give gender importance, like clothing and makeup and hair and how we look physically, I never really had the opportunity to explore because one, I lived in a very conservative small town growing up, and two, my mom limited my clothing because I was disabled. On top of that, we were poor. So I often went between wearing my brother's hand me downs and whatever my mother thought was appropriate for me to wear. So, like, I'm about to be 40 next year, and I've never really explored my sense of style. When I moved in with my girlfriend, she has great style. So I always
Oh,
just let her pick out my clothes. And so here I am at 40 exploring, what do I want? What do I want to wear? What do I want to look like? And I think it's a journey we all are moving on, and it can change throughout our life.
that's that's amazing. That's amazing. Do you feel like at some point in your life this journey, in the okay, I'm gonna be frank and ask the question: have you felt discriminated against? You kind of touched upon this. You weren't feminine enough, you weren't masculine enough. So can you kind of describe a little bit more of your journey of coming to terms with who you are, and that is not necessarily who society expects you to be?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So I am also disabled,
Mm-hmm.
multiply disabled. But when I was growing up, people just really knew that I had spinal muscular atrophy, which is a neuromuscular disability. Just so you understand a little bit about what that meant for me growing up was I walked until I was 16, but I had a gait, which is like a limp.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I basically would throw my leg out when I walked. So it was very visible that I was disabled if I moved. If I was sitting down, you couldn't tell, and people wouldn't, even pay me any mind if I was sitting down. But, once they knew I was disabled, it became a different story of how they treated me.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe I was denied the ability to be feminine because of that. I was denied girlhood, especially by other girls. They were very cruel to me. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
feel like I fit in, and I think that's a lot of why I thought maybe I was, an F to a man. I didn't really understand women. I didn't think I deserved rights to femininity, and who, like, femininity doesn't belong to anyone.
Of
So, like,
course.
in my mind, I think that personally for me, I probably, my brain says I should have been born a boy. But I think if I would have been born a boy, I would have been very feminine, probably perceived as gay,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and that's a perfectly acceptable way to be a boy, but we say that's not acceptable.
Right.
So I think once I started transitioning, I still get discriminated against. I still get considered female all the time because my voice is androgynous, and apparently androgynous means female. I mean, you should really have
Who
heard
made
my
that
voice
book?
before.
Okay. Okay.
Well, I mean, not it doesn't mean female, but that's what people treat it like it
Mm-hmm. No,
means. You
no,
know what I mean?
I understand where you're
Um,
coming from.
In fact, I just got a letter, Miss Evans, please fill out this form for us. Now I'm legally listed as male. I did change my gender,
Mhm.
and I'm more comfortable for people to perceive me as male, especially in these times. It's safe.
Mhm.
That's why
Mhm.
I generally use he, him. I'm
Mhm.
not averse to they, them,
Mhm.
especially since they, them can be singular for anyone. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? I
Mhm.
don't mind it, but I know that, especially as someone who's disabled, who's dealing with the government and Medicaid and these programs that help keep me alive, it's not always safe to say, hey, I'm a they, I'm not a he, and so having that's been a real safety feature for me. But I don't get identified that way because even if people look at me in person and see, I look more masculine,
Mhm.
uh, there's no question if you look at me that most people would think I'm male. But, and those who know I'm trans and look masculine will go to the point where they'll deny me the femininity. So it goes both ways. The
Mhm.
people that know me will say, well, you're a man. You don't understand misogyny. You've never experienced
Ugh.
it. Shut your mouth, blah, blah, blah. And the people that see me as female say, you're a girl. We're going to disregard you. We're going to be misogynist to you. So I get it from both ends. And, I experienced severe misogyny
Of
growing
course.
up,
Of course.
especially. And I feel like I never really have access to spaces where it's safe or even welcome to talk about these instances. So,
Uh,
and that can be really detrimental to your mental health.
yes. Yes. And that is my next question. Do you feel like this affected your mental health? Do you feel like, I mean, it must have. Like
Oh,
there's no way around
absolutely.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I know that we kind of skipped the first question, so I think it's probably best if we go back to the
Yes,
beginning
I'm so
and
sorry. So
answer that.
everybody, we do have a list of questions, but for those who don't know, they're really a jumping off point, and we jumped off, right? Like we jumped right off. So yeah, so we can go back a little bit, and so if you don't mind detailing, so why is mental health an important subject to you?
Yeah. Yeah. So, I, um, So, as I said, I was born with a visible disability. I'm multiply disabled now. I have mental health disabilities, particularly OCD, anxiety, and something trauma based
Mm-hmm.
that has not been diagnosed.
Mm-hmm.
I can get into why
Mm-hmm.
it's not been diagnosed
We can kind of take that in
after
a
I
separate
say
side.
this.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Let's go with this for now.
Okay, and I also have chronic disabilities. A lot of them have come with age, and that's the thing people don't understand is even if you're already disabled, as you age, we all become disabled. And well, usually, if we live long enough, we all become disabled in some way. So as I get older, I'm collecting disabilities. It's like Pokemon.
Oh my god.
Got to catch them all,
As
right?
someone with a few acronyms, I mean, it does. I think after two, you're like, all right, how many more am we getting here? How many more am I
Yeah.
going to collect? Yeah, so I
Yeah,
feel that.
so to give you an idea of what I'm going through right now, I have spinal muscular atrophy, I have asthma, osteoporosis, I have a rare blood disorder that's a type of blood cancer called polycythemia.
Oh my goodness.
I, as I said, I have OCD and the three mental health based disabilities and chronic pain. I think that's it though.
Mm-hmm.
So I
That's,
hope
I
that's
mean,
it.
that's it. That's still a list. That's still a
Yeah,
list.
yeah, it's a
Yeah.
bit of a list.
Yeah.
But when I was growing up, it was a spinal muscular atrophy and asthma. Those were the things that I had. And I became suicidal when I was 5.
Wow.
Yeah. And that was when I entered kindergarten. And that was when people started realizing I was different. My
Mm-hmm.
parents had to take me out of school because I kept saying my life's not worth living. I don't want to be alive. I don't want to be like this.
Oh,
There's something wrong with me. I need to be fixed. And those were all messages I was getting at school. Because I walked with a gait, people would look at me, and I always describe it as it looked like a little duck waddling when I walked. And
aw.
so they would quack at me. And then
Oh no, I thought that was so endearing, and then no, not people making.
yeah, they
Oh,
would quack at me to the point where they would call me Duck. And when I in the we had a little like spring play where everybody got to be bunnies, and I was cast as the duck. And I just like cried and cried and cried, and everybody was like, "There's no small parts," but it's like they didn't realize that
yeah.
my teacher didn't realize that this other teacher had cast me in a role, stereotyped me. And that was just where it all started. And the abuse became even worse. My school didn't want to include me. And in 1975, a law was passed that said that you can't exclude disabled children
Mm-hmm.
from being mainstreamed. But
Mm-hmm.
my school wanted to try and break the law. Luckily, my family knew enough that they knew that it was illegal. But had that law not been in effect, they would have sent me to a school for people with disabilities,
Mm.
particularly intellectual disabilities. Mind
Oh,
you, I don't have an intellectual disability. I have a physical
a
disability.
lot of
And I,
people conflate the two, and it's very
yeah, I
upsetting.
ended up in honors classes. In fact, everybody who was in my reading group, because we were in like an honors reading group, was tested for the honors program, but me, because they said they didn't think I was smart enough to be tested for it.
Oh,
And my mom said, no, you're not going to do that. You're going to test my kid too. And so I was tested and I scored higher than everybody on the test.
of course
I
you did.
In fact, I scored so high, they'd never had anybody score as high as I had in the history of the test. So,
You badass.
but it was like fighting for everything. And
Yeah.
that was happening at school. And then at home, my mom has her own mental health issues. At the
Mm.
time when I was little, I didn't know. She had a breakdown when I was a teenager. And that has, contributed to our family, especially as she's gone between treatment and no treatment and things like that. And that had a dynamic. And my family, both my parents came from like these abusive backgrounds.
Mm.
My dad grew up in a Polish enclave in Toledo called La Grinka.
Mm-hmm.
And that it was a very male led culture.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So my dad was older. He had a family before my mom. He married my mom.
Mm-hmm.
So I have brothers that are 20 years older than me.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have a brother who's 2 years older than me. And I was technically, quote unquote, the only girl. So my dad always grew up being taught that dads don't interact with girls. So
Mm.
he was like head of band boosters for my brother, and he coached his soccer. And I just was not a part of that world.
Mm-hmm.
I was a
Mm-hmm.
spectator. I wasn't allowed to be a part of that. And it wasn't really until I was a teenager and I was involved in theater that my dad really wanted to be a part of that. Like he realized he was missing out, but he'd also been influenced by this culture where the men just don't talk to girls. My aunt would get mad because I would speak up for myself, and she would say, ladies don't conduct themselves this way. They're not seen, they're not heard, and you're loud, and I don't like that. And so my aunt and I would also have a lot of problems because I was independent and I was very committed to what I wanted to do, and that was not what you were supposed to do. You were supposed to get married to another Polish person and have Polish babies and cook. And if you're disabled, you don't get that.
Yeah.
You don't get family, you don't get career. You live with your family for the rest of your life and be grateful. But I wanted so much more than that, you know. So my dad and I had a lot of problems. I grew up thinking he didn't love me, you know, so I had no safety anywhere. I would read a lot. I would watch movies and TV a lot. I kind of lost myself in film, television, theater, and books because I didn't feel like the world was safe for me. And from the time I was 5 until I tried to kill myself when I was 19, I had suicidal ideation every single day. I would pray because I was raised Catholic. I would pray
That
to God
compounds
to
everything.
cure, yeah, to cure me, heal me, or kill me, you know? And that's a bad place to be. I really have turned my life around, and that's because I was miserable the whole first half of my life. I was never happy ever. Like there were moments of things like, you know, a trip to you know, visit family or, you know,
Sure,
something
sure.
or a park or something. That would be fun, but I never had full happiness, even in those moments of joy. Um, and I didn't want to live that way anymore because I knew it was destructive to me.
Yeah.
But I also didn't, if you can't care about yourself, you can't care about other people.
Of course.
So it's been a real big journey of wanting to care for other people as my motivation to care for myself.
You give yourself purpose by saying other people's lives are more important, and that could help me continue going for them. Yeah, I'm
And that's kind
familiar.
of why helping others has been a major part of my life's work, because that was how I healed. And it's an ongoing process of healing. And this is why I say I have a trauma-based disability. I know that I have something like PTSD, but when you're physically disabled, doctors want to say, well, you're just depressed. You're disabled. Of
Sure.
course, you're depressed. You don't like not being able to walk and all this other stuff that's not true. Like, that's not my problem at all. I've accepted my disability.
Right. You
I
would
just
have
have
at
all
this
this
point.
trauma.
Right.
But there's this thought that you can't, if you have one disability, you can't have another type of disability. And that's really prevented me from getting the care I need mental health wise. So,
So what steps have you had to take? I know I'm still going off of questions. Let me know whenever you want me to veer back and onto the beaten path that we've established. But just going off of what you said, what steps do you take to take care of your mental health, since kind of there's a lot stacked up against you?
yeah, I was actually talking about this with uh, family the other day. I compartmentalize a lot.
Yeah.
I've had to, I think that's a process that I started doing as a child, that I put it in a little box and it just kind of sits there till I'm ready to deal with it. And that's really saved my life, you know. And I think as I get into this middle age, I'm starting to deal with that. It's been very healing to talk about it. And people always say, you whine about everything, you talk about all these horrible things, and it's like, no, 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 I'm not whining. I'm telling you my story.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm and it's healing my soul by doing
Yeah.
it, you know.
Yeah. And
So
I want you to know what I'm going through so that you better understand what others are going through. And it's healing
yeah,
to
yeah, that
you.
too.
It's healing to you, of course, and that's and that's very, very important. But like, listen, I personally am obsessed with your Twitter, and I think you know that because I'm pretty sure I liked every single tweet you've ever put out. And if not, it's because of the algorithm, not because of me, I swear. But
Yeah.
I am obsessed with your Twitter feed because it just opens my eyes to so much that I I couldn't have access to if I didn't open my eyes to it, right? Like if I wasn't open to learning about it, I would never have to know this stuff. I'm a person who's lived with mental health issues my entire life. I'm an immigrant. There's some stuff stacked against me, but I have not lived through what you have lived through. And I want to learn what your experience is like so that I can better treat people who have similar experiences, right? I will never be able to say, I went through what you went through and like, oh, I get it. But I want to be able to say, I didn't go what you're going through, but I think is this something that would help you based on this is what I know from talking to people in similar situations? And still I would never presume, right? But it's still eye-opening, incredibly eye-opening to be able to look at that and see somebody so... You've said this before, like you don't want to be called strong. You don't want to be called like an inspiration. You don't want to, it's not any of those things. It's about me looking at you and being like, honestly, it's about me stepping back, looking at somebody who's different than me and being able to say, wow, this is their experience without me butting in, without me saying, yes, but my experience matters too, or any of that crap. It's about me being able to observe and say, this is what it's like to be this person. And I know you don't represent every disabled person ever, because that's asinine as well. But I appreciate the ability to have insight into what it's like to be you. So thank you for that.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people have experienced what I'm going through. There's some obscure forms of abuse that I haven't really talked about in depth that I've gone through. But when I did mention one, somebody was like, hold the phone. I thought I was the only one in the world who ever experienced this. And that was mind blowing to me as well, because I thought the same thing, I thought I was alone. So like as healing as it is for other people to realize they're not alone when they read what I tweet, it's healing for me too. Because, I was this kid who was very alone. I had nobody, even my friends, quote unquote friends. So I had a best friend, and I call him my best friend just because I think on some level he loved me and cared about me and whatnot, but I was also poor. And my mom dressed me weird. I was, a weirdo, probably because I didn't know I was trans and all these other things. But we would go to camp for disabled kids and he would pretend he didn't know me.
Oh, kids are awful.
So like that was my best friend. So imagine how everybody else treated me.
Right.
And so I thought I didn't deserve love, or...
Well, you didn't have an example to show you that.
Yeah. And that was a really big hallmark of everything. And I'm so grateful I have my girlfriend. She has been through the ringer with me because she's been there through every emotional... I was not a nice person for a long time. I was mean. I was arrogant. I was hateful. I internalized all that hate that I felt for myself. And it just kind of flies outward when you're just filled with rage. And I saw that in my dad. My dad was never violent physically to us, but he would get so mad that he would literally shake. Like you could see the rage embedded in him. And I did not want to become that person. My dad had 4 heart attacks before he died of a heart attack. And, he had a heart attack before I was born. And then he had 3 more before, and then he had he had 5 because the last one killed him. But like both of my parents had high blood pressure. I grew up in a house where yelling was normal. And
I know about that.
was a cycle I had to break. I have a son. My girlfriend had a son when we got together that I've adopted. And, I helped raise him. He's my son. But my first instinct when I got together with her was when he did something wrong was to scream at him.
Yeah.
And, he's autistic, so he would scream back at me, you
Right,
know?
right. And then the two of you are a great pair. Yeah.
Right, right. So I had to break that cycle, and breaking cycles of abuse is very hard.
Very
But
difficult.
I have to say my instinct is no longer to yell.
Hmm.
You know, I do yell every once in a very great while. I'll get frustrated and yell, but that's not my first instinct anymore.
Hmm.
And that took years and years and patience from my girlfriend, and who put up with all my crap for a long time to help me get to this place. And she'll say that I've kind of surpassed her on compassion and all
Oh,
that things, but like it took me to the point where I had to decide I don't want to be that angry person
yeah.
anymore. And
Yeah.
that's my motivation for everything I do is I want to be content for myself and at peace for myself. And you know,
Yeah. Yeah. But that you're talking about that cycle of abuse, and it's very familiar to me, and it's it takes a lot, because if that's all you know, because people will talk about how awful people are just terrible people, and I mean, I don't believe that that's not the case sometimes, but I really believe that most of the time awful people are just, that's how they were brought up. Violent people, that's
yeah,
what they know. They don't know otherwise. And that can tie, and I'm only going to touch upon this a little bit, but that can tie into the whole argument of, are people naturally violent, and do people have violent tendencies, and if somebody's violent, do they have a mental illness, like stuff like that,
yeah,
which is, I want to it's not correct. People with mental illnesses are more likely to be victims of violence. But
oh yeah,
that all aside, like, it's so misunderstood. I just wish more people like kind of stopped and thought about other people's psyche and like what they must be going through. And that's
yeah,
hard to do when you yourself are having a very difficult time and somebody treats you like shit. It's really hard to be like, I'm going to look at it from their perspective. How do they feel right now? Like, no, F you. Bye. Like, I don't need to talk
right,
to you. I don't need to put up with this. But it is the truth. It's very often, I think, we we place judgment onto people who've wronged us. And it helps me. I only say this and go on this long tangent because, kind of going off of what you said, it helps me to understand what makes like why an angry person might be the way they are. And then that informs me my next interaction with them. Right. Like, I might be a little bit more compassionate. I might be a little bit more patient. Not to the point where I become a doormat, but at least to the point where I am at peace with myself, and I don't maybe take something as personally, because I know, hey, this person has their own issues and that's why they're yelling at me, for example. But long story
right.
short, what you were saying is, yeah, it's immensely correct. It's just impossible to break out of that, almost impossible to break out of that cycle of abuse, and you yourself not become an example of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful that and it didn't there was never a point where I was like, "Oh, I'm slipping out of this." It was a whole group of things. One, it was me not wanting to be angry all the time, and I saw someone say it's not being angry that's wrong. And I agree with that. It's not being angry that's wrong, but I was angry all the
Mm-hmm.
time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's when it became a problem. Like I hated myself.
Yeah.
I wanted to die.
Right.
But I didn't want to die. I wanted to die because I wanted the pain to go away.
Yes.
But that's something we can fix. So I worked, it was a lot of working to, it started with, my response when my son did something. My son's autistic.
Mm-hmm.
So, it was a lot of learning what would work for him, where
Mm-hmm.
it's be quiet, give him time. He's probably processing things on overload right now.
Mm-hmm.
So me screaming just adds to the noise. It's not going to help. So it really helped me that I was able to be quiet in those moments because he needed that,
Mm-hmm.
because that allowed me to step away and get control of myself. And
Mm-hmm.
that was a really big tool in getting me to break the no yelling cycle of abuse.
Mm-hmm.
Um, So, but also taking testosterone, which I can no longer take because of my blood disorder. It's just a really rare,
Oh.
uncommon
Mhm.
complication that just seemed to help. But and I've come to terms with that too. But the testosterone really calmed me down.
Mhm.
People say that it can make you like aggressive. I didn't experience that at all.
Interesting.
I it No, nothing like that. It actually settled me a lot. And maybe that was what was missing.
Right.
And my body still is I'm still growing facial hair, so I still have testosterone. It's been a year. I don't know if my body makes a little bit more, so it is trying to maintain those levels or whatnot, but um I haven't really seen that many mood changes since then. The one thing that the testosterone not taking it has done is that I do occasionally have these moments where my OCD takes over.
Mm.
And my OCD is not nice. My
Mhm.
OCD tells me I'm not worth it. Uh, Kind of like imposter syndrome. I
Mhm.
don't deserve accolades.
Mhm.
I'm not smart. I'm not worthy. So I have been going through, like, I'll have a day like that where I'll just be like, God, nobody likes you. Nobody wants to be your friend. You're ridiculous, and then I'll be okay.
Right.
But the testosterone kind of calmed that, where I didn't really have those moments anymore. But for the most part, I've been maintaining, the calm, and that's good because I like that. I like kind of being in control of what's going on in my head. And I know, I'm sure you know that it's not always possible. So
Right. It's not. It's we like to think we have a lot more control over it than we really do. We fool ourselves. um when did you when did you first feel like, hey, what's going on with me is it's not right, it's not exactly, something's off, and then what do you, once you figure that out, what do you do? Because you describe, being suicidal and everything, and being made fun of and all of that, but when do you come to this? 'Cause a lot of that is viewed through like a children's eyes, right, through a children's
yeah,
mind. So when do you fully come to the realization that, like, hey, people aren't treating me right, I don't feel right, something has to be done? How did that
yeah.
happen?
So I think I always knew something wasn't right because
Mm-hmm.
people told me that my whole life, you're
Oh.
not right in
Oh.
some way or another.
Mm.
So I knew there were things going on. I was in therapy from the age of 5 to, like, in my 20s. And I never wanted to talk to my therapist.
Mm-hmm.
My mom is very manipulative and narcissistic, and
Oh.
so we were in family therapy, and my dad wouldn't talk to the therapist, and neither would I, for our own specific reasons. So we ended up in private therapy on our own with
Mm-hmm.
the therapist.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think I ever told the therapist anything about what I was truly feeling, because I thought that, like, nobody wanted to hear that. Or I don't even know if I really understood it myself to be able to describe it. And not once did I ever have a therapist say, you're going through ableism
Right.
and it's not okay. I just been fed the cure narrative. You're broken, you need to be fixed, you need to fight for a cure. And I was raised
Huh.
in the MBA community where I was pimped for profit, which means they would take me out. I was a cute little girl. They would put me in dresses, make me sit on men's lap and get them to give money,
Oh my
and
gosh.
yeah. So and the whole message that Jerry Lewis was giving with that is, you're broken. He literally called us half people.
Oh.
You're not a whole person, you're a half person. So, like, I thought all of it was disability. You are a half person, you're not worthy. If you're not cured, you're broken. And I think it wasn't until I got into college and I met other disabled people who were like, I'm a crip, I'm a gimp, I love it, I'm cool, you know? And that was really when I was like, why do you like being disabled? And, you know, once I started loving myself as disabled, I could start loving, you know, everything else about myself. So,
Oh, what a journey. Oh my gosh. Oh my
yeah.
gosh. That's through hell and back. And how do you look at that? So there's clearly there's a lot of trauma there, and there's a lot of dehumanization. Somebody put it well in the stream. How do you look at that back now and manage? Because you do. I've talked to you, and you seem to have such a positive attitude and a positive outlook. And like you said, you've worked through breaking the cycle of being abusive. So like, how the hell do you go through all of that and come out on the other side a wonderful human being?
See, I could really have gone either way. I could have really become all that trauma. And this is just a tip of the trauma I've gone
Of
through.
course, there's no way
Like
you could tell the whole your whole life story
no,
in
there's
40
so
minutes.
so much. Like I've written recently about the hate crimes I experienced in school. At least two major hate crimes in school. One where I was taken out of school by my doctors for safety reasons.
Wow.
You know, just like, well, first I recognize everything isn't always positive, and I embrace the negative.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay to be negative. If you're harnessing that negativity in a certain way. And that's where I say, you know, I do have negative thoughts, and I'm going to get through them. And it's
Mm-hmm.
okay to be angry and mad.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I'm mad about how I've been treated.
Mm-hmm.
One of the places I haven't worked through is all the anger with my family. My school thing sounds bad, but what I went through with my family is, I hope nobody ever has to go through that, because I don't have a mom. My dad died. All of my grandparents are dead. All of my family thinks I'm this horrible person. You know, and that's another thing, when everybody thinks you are horrible. I don't know if you want to prove them wrong, but it's like you can either say, well, yeah, I am this horrible thing, or you can say, I'm nothing like that. And my thing was, I'm not horrible. So are you going to believe all these lies, or are you going to get to know me and realize that I'm not what these horrible things my family has said about me, you know, are, that isn't me, that isn't what happened. And, you know, so for me, it was about embracing negativity, if that makes sense, you know, letting myself be negative in those moments so it couldn't consume me. Because if I just let it fester and say I'm going to be positive all the time, if I just say, you know, everything's okay, then I'm just going to explode into that anger ball again. Because I can compartmentalize things, I can't completely, you know, like, I can't let them be there forever. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I can
Yeah.
say, hey, I'll work on this later, but I have to work on it, you know? And I think that's where I've come with my family. It's like, what did I ever do to you to make you hate me so much that you would treat me this way? And also coming to terms with the fact that I am not unlovable.
Oh
You
my
know,
gosh.
when I was in the last time my mom gave me anything, she included her journal, which told me about all the ways my disability ruined her life.
Oh.
Yeah, so like, you know, it was never about, she would occasionally be like, my poor little girl, look at how all her suffering has ruined me,
Yeah.
you know? And instead of asking, are you even suffering? Which I don't think I was in the way she thought. I've suffered from ableism, but my disability, I haven't suffered, you know, like not walking. I'm not suffering because I can't walk. I'm suffering because of the way people treat me because I can't walk. So But
That's
like,
such an important distinction to make. That is
yeah,
so, because again, that's the difference between internalizing a message of, oh, you can't walk and whatever that entails, versus, where I can't walk and I'm so this and I'm so that because I can't walk, versus you saying, that's on those people for saying that about me. And that is exactly what hurts. But I'm fine the way I am. That's
right,
amazing. That's incredible.
right. I had to get to that point. It was a
Of
very long
course.
journey,
Of
you
course.
know. But I think that's really been the catalyst for all of this is working through my family issues, you know.
Mm.
And I go between things like, for me the big thing is like, our society says your mom's supposed to love you no matter what.
Oh my God. Yeah, that is, I'm so sorry. That's hitting really, really close to home because that
It's
was,
okay.
no,
It's okay. I understand.
that was my family. That was my upbringing. That was, the physical abuse and emotional abuse. Like that hits me home. I mean, you've said a lot of incredible things, but talking about this understanding that society has that your family's supposed to be there for you and they're supposed to love you. And then that
Yeah,
is in so dissonance with how your family ends up treating you and talking to you. And then coming to terms with like that middle of saying, wait, but I can have family, but it's not these people. And
right,
how they're just because they're related to me by blood doesn't give them a freebie to treat me like crap.
right,
And just because I don't have the family that Disney's portrayed for me in every TV show also doesn't mean that something's wrong with me. It's these people have done me wrong, and it's
right.
okay to take that off of yourself. And that was very hard to do.
I think you also have to figure out, do you want that family member to still be a part of your life, and what
Mhm.
can you overlook? You know,
Mhm.
so for example, I don't have a family member who hasn't done me dirty in some way. None of them. None of them. So I have an aunt, and she reached out to me after all the drama with my family. When my grandfather was dying, my mom decided to put me on the no contact list for hospice. So I showed up on, my grandfather, by the way, was the first person to ever send me a card that said, Happy Easter, Dominic. You know,
Oh.
before he died,
Mhm.
he accepted me. He was
That's a
96 years
big
old, which is
difference.
why
Mhm.
when people say, oh, people can't change, fuck you. My 96-year-old grandfather,
Mhm.
you know, accepted me. He's
Mhm.
like, I don't get it, but I'll call you Dominic. It makes you happy. Seeing me happy with my girlfriend made him so happy. And
Yeah.
he was ready to die because he was able to say, you're taken care of.
Mhm.
I can
Mhm.
die now. You know, he stayed alive to make sure, because he knew my mom wasn't there for me, you know. But my mom put me on the don't visit list. I showed up on Father's Day and they said, you're not welcome here, go away. Um, yeah, 3 hour drive. You know, I have chronic pain,
Mhm.
was
Mhm.
sitting cramped in my wheelchair in a car, you know, and this is what they do. But my grandfather still did me dirty. When I was a teenager, I was sexually assaulted by someone in our family who
Mhm.
married into our family, and nobody believed me. None of them. They would not believe me, and my grandparents disowned my family for a year till I apologized, and I wouldn't
Oh.
apologize. Yeah, the exception is my dad. My dad said, my dad believed me. My dad never, my mom believed me, but she eventually got to the point of, I miss my parents, you need to apologize.
Mhm.
And my dad was like, you're never apologizing. You were not wrong. And, you know, he wanted to kill the person who did it, honestly,
Mhm.
you know?
Mhm.
And so, like, I had to say, can I overlook that moment with my grandfather where he went with my grandmother? It wasn't him who said, we're disowning you. It was my grandmother, who also, again, another victim of abuse.
Mhm.
She was physically abused by her mother. She had to drop out of high school when she was 16 to support her family because her parents were divorced in the 1920s. And she supported her whole family. Her mom didn't work. And if she didn't give all the money, her mom would body slam her through a wall. So my grandmother was severely abused, and she was not always a nice person because of it. I think that's another motivator for me. I don't want to be like my grandmother, who we don't talk about abuse in my family. We don't talk about, you know, pain and mental health. These are all people who never went to therapy, never, you don't acknowledge a mental health problem, you know. And I saw how angry and evil and mad she was. And then my grandmother got Alzheimer's and forgot it all, except for like she would remember the past, and she would cry sometimes about it. And that to me was when I was like, you know, I'm looking past what she did to me, because she doesn't remember.
Yeah.
Can I logically say I'm going to judge her when she doesn't have the comprehension to remember what she did to me? And I think I was able to look past that for my grandfather at the same time and say he did all these other amazing, great things for me and was there for me in every other way. But he still hurt me, you know? So, like, can I look past these things family do? And with my mother, there was just so much you just can't. So I think all of us have to do that. Can we look past the hurt and pain and trauma? And no answer is right.
Right.
For any,
That's,
you know?
Yep. Yeah, that's exactly right. There's no right answer when it comes to forgiveness. It is up to the person who needs to forgive, whether or not they're in the place to do so. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
So we're coming up on the end of our hour, and this is, gosh, you are wonderful. You're just wonderful to talk to, and we could clearly be going for a long time. So everybody, get in your questions if you have any, because we are going to wrap up otherwise. I don't see any questions, which means we've been thorough. That's what that has taught me. But yeah. So my concluding thing is always like, so what do you do to stay on top of your mental health now? What do you do to maintain it? What do you do to maintain yourself in a good mental headspace?
Well, doing what I love has been majorly helpful for my mental health. I got my BFA in film in 2014. I've been working a lot at doing representation of film, a lot of work into representation, and which has really been where my heart has been. And I can't talk about it yet, but I have big news on that front, work-wise. Amazing news.
Okay. Well, I'm excited, and maybe you'll give me the first scoop when it comes. No, I don't know.
Yes, yeah. I would love to. Also, in the next few weeks, and this is why I have not been around beyond being sick. If Eva's still here, I'm sorry. I know I haven't hung out, friend, in a while, but we are wrapping up. We are getting to the point where I'm writing a paper. I just did a huge study into disability representation on television. It's going to blow your mind. Everything we thought about representation, we don't know. We don't know anything. This study is going to be revolutionary. Nobody has done what we've done.
I'm so excited to read. This is right up my alley. Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. So, around the Oscars, we're releasing the study, which is February 9th is the Oscars. So
that's coming right up. That's huge.
Yes. I'm to the point where I'm starting to write the paper. Yeah.
That's awesome.
I just went through all the results, and I'm just blown away. Like, we thought all of the other studies have been limited. They haven't looked really at, one of them looked at 28 characters on television. Now, mind you, our study looked at over 250 shows. 250 shows, you know. There were a lot of things that people have no idea about that we're about to reveal.
I cannot. Oh, okay. All right. I'm excited. I'm excited to read this. I don't know if you're reading chat, but Diva says she's been waiting for so long, and she sends you a heart.
Yeah, she was there from when I started the study. Yep. when I took a whole week off streaming and disappeared. So,
Wow.
but yeah, and then the next, we're already started on our next study for next year, so this will be continuing. So.
Wow, that's so awesome.
Yeah,
No,
but we have more like 500 shows this year. With all the new streaming services, they just keep, you know, and we did it with zero financing. We couldn't get anyone to give us any funding
oh my
at
God.
all for it.
That
So,
sucks.
and yeah, and there was two of us doing the main bulk of it. We had one other person who did a couple shows, but it was mainly me and Ashton, my girlfriend. Ashton is a trooper. Ashton watched
She sounds
like
like a badass.
175 shows herself, and she's a beast. She is a beast at this. So
That's badass. Ah, that's so exciting. Num Num says, my only question for Dominic is if we can ever meet, can I give you a big hug? And I will get the tissues.
yes,
Oh,
always big
oh.
hugs.
Such an amazing couple that supports each other. Yeah, that's what I've seen from like everything. It's beautiful to watch. Thank you so
Oh
much for your
God.
work,
We're
Dominic. Blissful
ridiculous
Spliss.
together. We are
Oh,
ridiculous. Like we always we always joke that we lightly roast each other whenever we talk. It's like a little mini roast session the whole time you hang out with us. So.
aw, I love that. That sounds familiar too. I love that. That's the way to be, because that's how you keep conversations honest and flowing. And I love it. I love it. I love it. They're adorable and cute together too. Blushing, I don't doubt that for a second. Bliffle says thank you for all of your work, Dominic. And
Well, thank you,
oh my
everyone.
gosh, is there any closing notes? Anything that you want people to know before you, yeah, before we wrap this up?
If anybody ever wants to play Fortnite or Overwatch, I am a huge player of both. I have just got into multiplaying with other people. So I'm always looking for other gamers to hang out with. And I wish I could tell you my big news because I'm dying to tell everyone.
Okay, well, I'm really excited to learn about it whenever it is, and yeah, I hope.
I'll
Oh,
just let you know it involves Hollywood.
oh, stop it! Well, how am I supposed to sleep now? Oh my gosh, Blast Corpse! I'm excited for you to watch the VOD. It's a great one. Dominic's story is one. It's incredible, and just thank you so much for taking the moment to share this with us. I know it's not easy. I know, even though you've been interviewed plenty of times, so have I, and every time I'm like, I got this, I can retell my story, and I've told
Mm,
it a million times, and then you start telling it and you're like, whoa, this is still very heavy. So
yeah.
I appreciate it very much that you took the time to do that, because you are very likely helped a lot of people.
Oh, thank you. I love to talk. That's the one thing. I am an extreme extrovert, and I, I'm kind of stuck in the house right now for
Mm-hmm.
accessibility issues, and well, it's snowing here in Michigan always lately.
Mm-hmm.
So, snow and wheelchairs do not get along.
I can't imagine
But
they
like,
do.
but it's just like I suck up the, need to talk in all these interviews, so I love them. So
Oh, awesome.
anytime you want to talk, I am happy. Dom likes to talk, right, Diva? I'm
I
always the storyteller. In fact, we have a friend. Do you know Hoovian? I think you know
know
Hoovian.
Huvian. Yeah, that sounds
Yeah,
very familiar.
Hoovian always asks me to tell stories.
Aw.
So I'll just randomly start telling stories. I think I told the story about her and Jay Porter, and Jay Porter was the evil villain who went after Hoovian, and she was cracking up. So
Aw.
I'm the storyteller of the group, I think.
Oh, I love it. This interview went fast. I know. I agree. I agree. But that just means they can come back.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Anytime you want. This was so much fun.
Oh my gosh, you're the best. And I hope to, continue chatting. You have my Discord now, so you know exactly how to find me. I
Yes.
absolutely adore you. Thank you for being 100% you. If there's
Well, I
nothing else.
absolutely adore you as well. And I'm so happy for all your success and all the work you're doing in mental health because, there's not enough help there. I wish I had people like you in my corner when I was growing up. And I know that a lot of this is heavy and you have your own mental health struggles. So if you need anything, I am always there.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's where it comes from, is that I struggled growing up too, and this is
Yeah.
what you described as your purpose. This is how I found mine. So I feel you a lot. I really feel a kinship with you. So I'm glad we got to connect. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And thanks to Diva, who I think is the one who hooked us up.
Connect. Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
All things. Listen, everything that I've accomplished on Mixer, I can easily give to Diva. She's incredible. Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure Blushing also told me about you as well. But I'm sure I first met you on a raid from Diva. So
Maybe. Very, very, very
that
likely.
was
But I
back
feel
on
like
Twitch, I think.
Yeah, but I feel like we also connected over Twitter. You know what? It doesn't matter. We're here now because I'm going to spend hours trying to figure it out. Oh my gosh, you're absolutely lovely, lovely, lovely. Have a wonderful rest of your night.
You too.
Bye. Thank you so much.
Bye, everybody. Have a good night.